A quiet Queens neighborhood awoke to chaos, a blazing house fire that hid a far darker truth. Inside were the remains of a beloved elderly couple, their lives brutally ended before the flames began. What happened in this peaceful home, and who could commit such an unthinkable act? On a late summer morning in Belrose, Queens, the Olton home looked just like every other brick house on the quiet block. Frank and Maureen Olton, a devoted couple in their late 70s, had lived there for decades. Frank, a retired MTA employee, liked to spend his mornings tinkering in the garage or reading the paper on the porch. Maureen, once a neighborhood volunteer, was known for her warm smile and for slipping baked goods to friends who passed by. Their life together was gentle, predictable, and deeply rooted in this New York City community. That Tuesday began like any other. The sun hung high over the narrow lawns, and neighbors went about their errands. But just after 10 o'clock, something happened that would unravel their sense of safety forever. Surveillance cameras on the street later showed a man walking door to door. He was tall, wearing a dark hoodie despite the warmth, pausing briefly at driveways as if deciding where to go. The man eventually stopped at the Oltons' front steps. According to investigators, he rang the bell and asked to come in, saying he needed to charge a dead phone. Frank and Maureen, known for kindness, let him inside. They couldn't have known that behind that polite request was someone with a violent past, a man later identified as. Over the next few hours, the Oltons' normally calm home became the setting for something terrifying. Detectives believe McGriff stayed there for nearly 5 hours. What went on during that time remains partly hidden in police files, but evidence suggests tension rose behind the drawn curtains. At one point, neighbors noticed a strange car idling and a figure moving through the side gate. No one imagined the danger unfolding just beyond the hedge. By mid-afternoon, the couple's usual routine, a walk to the mailbox, Maureen's calls to her sister, never happened. Instead, the house remained unnaturally still. For Frank and Maureen, the ordinary day they had planned would never return. Fade to black with caption, "Hours later, smoke would pour from this house, revealing a tragedy no one could comprehend." Just after 3 o'clock that afternoon, an acrid smell drifted across 85th Avenue. Neighbors stepped outside, scanning the block, unsure of where the smoke was coming from. Within moments, flames burst from the rear windows of the Olton home, licking up the vinyl siding. Someone dialed 911 as plumes climbed into the late summer sky. The FDNY arrived quickly. Crews pulled hoses across the narrow lawn, forcing entry through the front door as heat rolled out in waves. Inside, the first floor was already choking with black smoke. Firefighters pushed deeper, their visibility nearly gone. On the living room floor they made a grim discovery: Maureen Olton, 77 years old, lying unconscious near an armchair. Her body showed severe burns, and despite frantic efforts, she could not be revived. The crew pressed on, searching for Frank. Down a set of basement stairs, a second team broke through thick haze, and found a scene that stunned even seasoned rescuers. Frank, 76, was tied to a support pole, his clothing scorched, multiple stab wounds marking his torso. It was clear that what had started as a house fire was actually something far more sinister. Investigators immediately called in homicide detectives alongside the fire marshals. They combed through the charred basement, noting that accelerant had been splashed near ignition points. This was no accident. Someone had set out to destroy evidence, or to ensure no one inside survived. Outside, neighbors gathered in disbelief behind yellow tape. They spoke in hushed voices about the quiet couple who waved every morning, the people who would lend a ladder or offer coffee without hesitation. None could fathom why anyone would target them with such violence. As dusk settled, the blackened house stood as both crime scene and memorial. Detectives photographed every room, recovering melted plastic from a gas can and footprints near the back door. They sealed off the property, determined to reconstruct the timeline of terror that had unfolded inside. But the most pressing question was immediate: who had been with Frank and Maureen that day, and where had he gone once the flames were lit? Surveillance cameras in the neighborhood offered their first crucial lead: a man leaving the Oltons' driveway shortly before the blaze, carrying several bags. By the time fire crews arrived, he had vanished. As night fell over Queens, detectives knew they were racing the clock. Whoever had taken Frank and Maureen Olton's lives had also tried to erase every trace with fire, a tactic meant to stall investigators. But the killer left behind one crucial mistake: surveillance. Hours of neighborhood security clips revealed a man leaving the Oltons' driveway minutes before smoke erupted from the house. He carried shopping bags, climbed into their silver sedan, and pulled away. The timestamp was just after 2:50 p.m. Investigators froze the image and zoomed in on the driver's face. Meanwhile, a forensic team swept the scorched rooms. They gathered fragments of melted plastic, shoe impressions, and even a faint print on a basement window. Arson specialists confirmed the blaze had been set intentionally, using an accelerant. Detectives traced the couple's missing credit cards. Within hours of the fire, someone swiped one at an electronics shop near Times Square. NYPD plainclothes officers reviewed store footage and immediately recognized the same man from the Belrose surveillance. By 11 p.m., police units converged on the busy tourist district. Under the glow of giant billboards, they spotted him, pacing near 43rd Street, holding a bag. Officers closed in, surrounding him before he could run. The suspect was identified as 42-year-old Jamel McGriff. Records showed an extensive criminal history: robbery, assault, parole violations. He was also a registered sex offender who had been released only months earlier. For detectives, the arrest raised as many questions as it answered. McGriff was taken to the 105th precinct for questioning. Sources say he offered little cooperation, only shrugging as officers listed the charges against him: first-degree murder, arson, robbery, kidnapping, identity theft, and more. Prosecutors later described the case as one of the most brutal crimes against seniors in recent New York memory. Even as police prepared the evidence file, grief swept through the Belrose community. Candlelight vigils grew outside the charred home. Neighbors left flowers, photographs, and handwritten notes to honor the couple whose kindness had been their undoing. But investigators still had work ahead, combing McGriff's phone, tracing the route he took after leaving the house, and building a timeline solid enough for court. Each clue would help them prove that the man arrested in the heart of Manhattan was indeed the one who turned a quiet Tuesday into tragedy. Fade to black with caption: "Justice moves forward, but the community mourns." In the days after Jamel McGriff's arrest, the Belrose neighborhood turned its grief into remembrance. Outside the Oltons' home, candles flickered against the blackened bricks. Neighbors brought flowers, framed photos, even handwritten letters. For a community built on quiet routines, the loss of Frank and Maureen felt like a wound at the heart of their street. Friends described Frank as patient and steady, the neighbor who would lend tools without hesitation. Maureen was remembered for her laughter and the way she baked extra just to share with others. Their only child, an FDNY emergency medical technician, stood among mourners, stunned that the people he had spent a lifetime protecting now needed justice themselves. Beyond personal sorrow, the case ignited a public conversation about safety for older residents. Advocates pointed out how easily trust can be exploited, especially by someone with a history of violence. City officials promised to review supervision of parolees and the reporting requirements for registered offenders. Yet, many who loved Frank and Maureen reminded reporters that their kindness was also their legacy, a trait they hoped would not be overshadowed by the cruelty that ended their lives. Meanwhile, prosecutors began preparing for what is expected to be a complex trial. McGriff has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, along with arson, robbery, kidnapping, and identity theft. He is being held without bail at Rikers Island, awaiting further hearings. Detectives continue to analyze digital evidence and forensic reports to make sure every detail is accounted for when the case reaches court. The story also serves as a reminder for viewers. Acts of generosity can carry risk, even in safe neighborhoods. Law enforcement agencies urge residents to verify strangers' identities before allowing them into their homes and to look out for vulnerable neighbors. For those touched by the Oltons story, the most meaningful tribute may be to carry forward their warmth while staying watchful, building a community where compassion and caution walk hand in hand. Frank and Maureen Olton built a life rooted in love, service, and quiet strength. Though their lives ended in violence, their spirit remains in every neighbor determined to keep one another safe. As this case moves through the courts, their memory reminds us of the value of kindness and the importance of protecting it.